with COVID. So what we're going to be doing is virtual home assessments. So we're going to be doing virtual home assessments, which will be done through Skype, Skype or Zoom, or even just over the phone, depending on the needs of the tenant. And so we're also going to be helping give out PPE supplies, things like that. The smoke detectors are a little bit different this year. We are not going into homes anymore, so we are not going to be able to hang those smoke detectors. So what is going to need to happen is that when you work with our program coordinator, she is going to be making sure that the smoke detectors are being hung, because like I said, we aren't entering homes at all this year due to COVID concerns. And this year, we're also going to be giving out smoke detectors at the discretion of our program coordinator who does the assessment. So she'll do the assessment and then kind of do, based on the needs assessment, determine how many smoke detectors are appropriate to hand out. So it's kind of a case-by-case basis. This year, we will also not be bringing apartments up to code. So like I said, depending on the needs assessment, if there's the need there, it might be up to code, but we won't be supplying, not every house might meet the criteria for us to be bringing them up to code. And we will not be doing any empty apartments this year due to funding shifting and a shift in supplies. So the apartment, especially for the smoke detectors and the health assessments, we won't be doing any empty ones this year. So a couple of changes there. Like I said, if you guys have tenants, it works best if the tenants reach out and contact us. That's our preferred way of doing it. However, you guys can reach out to, just head to the best way to do it is to head to our website, which is cayugacommunityhealthnetwork.org. If you look under the programs tab, you will see that there is a Healthy Neighborhoods program. And then there's actually a form you can fill out right on that webpage there to seek more information and set up an appointment. And then our program coordinator will be reaching out and doing those home assessments virtually this year. So a little bit of a shift, but still providing those, just kind of, with the twist in them being virtual and a shift in kind of the amount that we're able to give out this year. So I'm going to see if I can pull up, let's see, my chat box here. I see a couple of things coming in. All right. So let's see. All right. So All right, welcome back, everyone. So we are going to move right along into our next presentation, the topic of which is zombie properties. And this is going to be led by Nate Garland and Gino. So I'm going to hand it over to them and let them introduce themselves.
Hello, everybody. This is Nate Garland from the Corporation Counsel's Office in the City of Auburn. We at the city are working curtailed hours in City Hall, so I am working from home today. If the video goes live on me, you might be able to infer that from the JoJo Siwa poster behind me that does not hang in my office in City Hall. But this is all to say that I'm not sure if Gino is going to be on this call or not, which is somewhat unfortunate because he does a ton of the really great work that we do is due to his hard work. So we're very proud of the effort that he puts in. I've been asked to speak on zombie properties and what we do regarding zombie properties, and Sarah was kind enough to provide me with some questions and feedback that she had received in advance of this presentation. And so I'll try to address those questions as well. Starting from the very basic and reasonable question, what is this? I don't know what this is. What is a zombie property? And I guess the best way to kind of to address that is to say that everything old is new again. That the idea or concept of zombie properties came from the last financial crisis that we had in 2007, 2008, 2009, where banks essentially had chopped up mortgages and lent out loads and loads of money to sometimes to people that couldn't afford to pay the mortgages. And what we ended up with was a glut of properties that were undergoing foreclosure about 5 years later that really clogged up the judicial system that we have here in New York. And these properties just sat on, unmaintained for years and years, becoming a blight on the neighborhoods that they lived in. So we're hoping that with the new zombie property laws that are on the books now that I'll discuss, and frankly some of the work that we do out of our office, that we'll be able to be a lot more responsive and get at the problem a lot more quickly now than we would have in the past, so that we don't have a reoccurrence of the problem that brought the zombie property laws into existence 10 years ago. So just starting with the slideshow here, just zombie property overview. The foreclosure process in New York takes 3 years, which, as everyone on this call knows, as landlords and homeowners, 3 years is a lot can happen in 3 years to a property. In terms of deferred maintenance, a roof can fail in upstate New York winters. Things that would have catastrophic consequences to a property certainly can happen within 3 years. And if that property is in limbo, then there's no one to address those consequences, and that those 3 years have a real and a detrimental effect to a particular property that's in the foreclosure process. Many homeowners, to that end, many homeowners walk away from the property before the foreclosure process is complete. When individuals are first served with a legal notice of foreclosure, oftentimes they're not entirely sure what their rights are at that point in the process. And a lot of people will come to the conclusion that they have been unable to pay their mortgage, so they must leave, which is not the case, or just make a decision that they don't want to deal with the headache anymore and leave because of that. But anyway, that leads to, vacant, the length of the time and the relative helplessness of homeowners at that particular point in the foreclosure process leads to vacant and abandoned homes, which are a blight on the neighborhood that they exist in, and everyone on this call is certainly aware of that. And so we can just go on to the next slide. I've got some pictures of so these are some typical zombie properties that we have in the city. They sometimes are left in unsanitary condition. They can be structurally unsound. The next slide we have there is unsightly. There's a porch where the column is on the ground, and the front steps are all a kilter. Now that's probably not the it's not safe, certainly, but it's not the worst thing in the world when it comes to the safety of the house, but it certainly is unsightly. And if we could just go into the next slide, there certainly presents, as I said, safety issues where this is a property that we had where there was a skylight in the basement. Never a good idea, and certainly can lead to some significant safety issues. So again, with deferred maintenance, because of the foreclosure process, if there's no one there to address these issues, things can deteriorate to this level of safety or lack thereof. We can move on to the next slide. So in 2016, the New York State legislature decided to do something about this. They amended the Real Property Actions and Proceedings Law section that deals with foreclosing a mortgage, adding 3 sections. Real Property Actions and Proceedings Law section 1310, as you can see, requires mortgage lenders and servicers to register pre-foreclosure properties, which become vacant and abandoned with the New York State Department of Financial Services. When I first started doing this, I thought that was a little counterintuitive, that the DFS is the state entity that is in charge of this registry, but they do regulate mortgages within the state, and from a 30,000 foot perspective, this zombie property issue is a mortgage and a lending issue as much as it is anything. So the DFS then promulgates this, compiles this information of vacant and abandoned properties that are in the foreclosure process, and authorizes any municipality to essentially sign up and get a list of the properties in that municipality. So if we could move on to the next slide. This was, these statistics are not particularly up to date. When we started our program in 2018, there were about 75 properties. Now, as you can see, there are 50 properties. When I first put this slide up, we're probably around 35 or 40 right now. And that's because properties get added to the DFS list when the foreclosure process is initiated, and the lender or servicer makes a determination that the property is vacant and abandoned. So they sign up with the DFS at that point. The properties get taken off the list when the bank takes ownership of the property through a foreclosure for finally foreclosing on the mortgage. The next slide shows who we're dealing with here. The Real Property Actions and Proceedings Law shows that requires that lenders and servicers of a certain size, essentially. So essentially big national banks and mortgage servicers are the entities that are required to register. So if there was a mortgage on a property from one of our local credit unions, or a regional, a Cuba Lake Savings Bank, a local bank in that regard. They are not required to register with the Department of Financial Services. And you just look at this pie chart. Some of these banks are going to be identifiable. Wells Fargo is a national bank with problems of its own. Bank of America, same in that regard. JP Morgan, but a majority of these properties are the responsible party is a mortgage servicer. So Nation Star, New Penn, Celine, Carrington Mortgage Services, Ditech. These are entities that make their money. Their business model is that they contract with the mortgage originator to service that mortgage, and they then, pursuant to the zombie law requirements, they now have responsibility for maintenance of the property. But I put this slide up just so that if people can, to illustrate the point that these are not, mom and pop, banks. These are something different and less responsive to local concerns than Savannah Bank would be. The next slide is the enforcement provision of the zombie laws, Real Property Actions and Proceedings Law 1308. And this is the real teeth. It imposes a duty to maintain properties that are in the foreclosure process and are vacant and abandoned. The mortgage servicer or the lender has to maintain that property up to the standards of the New York State Property Maintenance Code. So that there are certain subsections within Real Property Actions and Proceeding Law 1308 that deal with specific New York State Property Maintenance Code sections. So roofing, railings, fascia, steps, porches are all covered in this section explicitly. And we have taken the section to also to read as if it incorporates other sections of the Uniform Code. So we take this section to also read any essentially any ticket that our codes guys can write is covered under Real Property Actions and Proceedings Law 1308. And we essentially require the servicer to fix that problem, even if it isn't specifically within the statute. And it also allows for a municipality, so in our case, the city of Auburn, to file an action against mortgage servicers who fail to maintain the property up to the standards of the Property Maintenance Code, and allows for a $500 a day penalty for each and every day the violation exists. And we have had a good amount of success in court in litigating these matters, and that's really because $500 a day is probably not going to ever move the needle for Wells Fargo, but it's certainly better than nothing. And by the time we end up filing these cases, it does add up to a number that is significant enough controversy in the legal sense that it needs to be addressed by by whoever's desk it lands on at Wells Fargo's attorney's office. So we're very pleased with the fact that exists in the statute. There's a top-down effect, to be sure, that simply by, and then the next slide just kind of gets at that, simply by having the zombie property laws in effect puts pressure on servicers to better maintain the properties. And this is where Gino from our code enforcement office comes in. That over the 2.5 years that we've been doing this in earnest, he has developed a great relationship and feel about these, a relationship with the banks and a feel for these properties, that really makes my job a lot easier, and that he's been able to build relationships with those, people at those banks and servicers that I spoke of just now, that maybe someone off the street would have a very difficult time finding someone to pick up and answer the phone when they call. Gino's Gino's on it. Gino knows people in all these places and is able to write an email when he's to the responsible and appropriate party when he sees a property maintenance issue. And since the servicers know that we do litigate these matters, and they have been very responsive to us at that level, at that time in the flow chart. So we've been having properties remediated upon issuance of a violation, rather than upon filing of a legal action, and that is absolutely a good thing. The DFS does assist, provide assistance. Real property actions and proceeding law requires that a municipality serve notice on the DFS, and the DFS then gives that notice to the that we provide to the lender and servicer, and so that has also moved the needle. That in the process of preparing a legal action, providing legal notice, in and of itself has hastened property maintenance repairs on behalf of the mortgage servicers. And we've filed. We're doing it ourselves in-house as a law office in the Corporation Counsel's office. We've probably filed about 15 of these suits now. We've gotten several banks to demolish unsafe zombie properties. We've accrued tens of thousands of dollars in civil penalties that go back to the city. And most importantly, I think, from my perspective, that remediation has taken place. So if we can skip ahead a couple of slides to the photograph, this is a property on Florence in the city, that we think of as a pretty good success story. There's not a again, this is the property maintenance issues here are not catastrophic. We've all have probably seen worse. I know that I have, but they're there. There was a porch issue, a deck issue, and some foundational issues. And if we can just skip ahead a few slides, you'll see that these pictures are taken in 2017. We issued a violation. We got no response from the mortgage servicer. Eventually in 2018, we sued them, and you can see they put on a new porch. If you go to the next slide, they fixed the foundation. They fixed the railings on the front porch. And the last slide of the full house shows that it sold for $106,000. Now, obviously, the mortgage servicer gets that money. It doesn't go to the city of Auburn, but that is a house that is now back on the tax rolls for the city of Auburn at a pretty good amount. And we like to think that, being a bit of a gadfly to these mortgage servicers, and requiring that they fix up places, shows eventually on the bottom line for them that this property would not have sold for $106,000 on that street in the condition that it was in prior to the city taking action. So finally, we're dedicated to fighting blight against the city, in the city. We have a proposed rental registry, the zombie property laws. We have a vacant building registry, and these are all complementary, and they each are somewhat tailored to addressing a stage in property's decline. And so with these tools, we're very pleased and confident that we can continue to get at blight issues within the city.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much. So now we are going to open this up to questions. Like we've done in the past. Oh, I've got a couple coming in on the chat. Let's read through some here. All right, so I've got a question here that says, can you say a little bit more about the rental registry? Well, I don't know if that one's really. Yeah. Do you want to answer that question? Do you want to say a little bit more about the rental registry, Nate, or would you like to address that maybe at a different time and stick to zombie properties?
Well, I would if I had anything to report. Right now, I can just say that it's something that is still being considered by the city. It's and it's part of the comprehensive plan. That's last time the city had a comprehensive plan done, that was a recommendation, and city staff and management are have to adhere to that plan. So it's something that is still being considered internally. But other than that, I don't have much to report.
Awesome, thank you. So any other questions about zombie properties? We've got staff keeping an eye on our Q&A. Anyone want to pop in on the chat? And again, we will be posting this presentation to our virtual binder. So for those of you who have attended our conference before, we give out the binder. However, this year we will be doing a virtual binder. So this presentation, along with Nate's contact info, will be available to you guys. I'll just give it a couple more seconds before we close here. All right. So with that, I'm going to, hold on. We do have one. Do you have a website that shows the zombie properties in the area, Nate? Like a list?
That's a great question, and the answer is not going to be particularly satisfying. That's and I'm not particularly pleased with it, but the Department of Financial Services, as a condition of allowing municipalities to access this list, requires that the contents of the list be kept confidential. Now, the thought behind that is that if we promulgate as a state every vacant, and because the properties that are on there are not only undergoing the foreclosure process, but they're also vacant and abandoned by definition. So if a list of every single property in the state of New York was available to the public, then the thinking goes, every single vacant and abandoned property that people interested in acquiring copper through illegal means would probably find that to be a good thing. That there's a public safety aspect to that, and that's why the list is not available to be pushed out to the public.
All right, and that looks, we might have one more in the chat here. Let's see. Can the list be accessed via the FOI Act? Is that something you have any information on, Nate?
Well, the FOIL requires that a municipality not release information that is confidential. So in that regard, no.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So it looks like that is wrapping up our questions for this one. And we are moving right along in our presentation. So Nate, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So I'm just going to have you All right, so next up on the agenda, we are going to hear from Lori Rolnick, and she is from the Volunteer Lawyers Project. So I am just going to